Okay, I'm back.
And you're live now.
Okay, welcome everyone to Creation Liberty Evangelism's Google Hangout. I am Tanya Johnson. I am your hostess this evening, and I am from Indiana. We also have with us Chris from Indiana. We have Jeannie from Australia, along with her husband, John from Iowa, Joshua from California, Kevin from New Zealand, and Dedrick from Georgia. Welcome, everybody. Tonight's discussion is pharmaceutical drugs. Now, for the sake of time, we will not be discussing vaccines or cancer treatment. Creation Liberty already has well-written articles about those subjects, and I don't feel the need to go over them. I would like to start this evening talking about pain medication. I think that's a good place for us to start, because who hasn't had a headache occasionally?
So before we start, I have a question.
Sure.
So one of the things that growing up, whenever we were in pain, as far as headaches go, we were never really taught what is the cause of a headache, but more or less what to do to stop it from hurting. So can you start by telling me, or enlightening me on what is the cause of a headache in general?
Well, I think headaches can have a whole bunch of different causes, but no one ever gets a headache because they didn't take enough Tylenol. Headaches can be caused by the food you eat. Headaches can be caused from a subluxation in the neck. There can be issues in the mouth and jaw. Sinus infections, there are so many different causes for headaches that we would be here all night naming them all. But what do you do about them is the question. I do have a physician's desk reference, so we can look up the side effects of acetaminophen, which is Tylenol for us common folk. So,
along with some of the causes that cause the headaches, because I can get the intentional headache, and sometimes just the deodorants, the red dye, I think it is, that's in it, that you spray it, and that'll give me a headache just right off the bat. And that's just one thing.
Yes, there are chemical causes for headaches as well. And again, you're not going to get rid of the cause by taking a drug. It's just not going to work. One of the, there they are. Okay, so one of the top problems with acetaminophen or Tylenol, Advil, whatever you want, is liver damage. That is the #1 side effect. And they call them side effects. I really don't think they should call them side effects. 9 times out of 10, whatever it says in the list of side effects, you're going to get at least one of them. An effect, not really a side effect. An effect is probably a better word for it, because cause it. Here. What else? Okay, it can also affect the heart. Arrhythmias are caused by acetaminophen. Heat stroke is one of the side effects listed. Hypertension is one of the side effects listed. There's also psychiatric side effects that can come from acetaminophen. So there is a whole list of things here that can happen from taking 1 or 2 Tylenol or 1 or 2 Advil. Now, don't get me wrong, it is perfectly fine. If you have a real emergency, go to an emergency room. They can definitely save your life. You can pick up the pieces naturally later. But for just a chronic headache, chronic joint pain, chronic whatever, it's not going to be in your best interest to take a pill for it. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I've never experienced anything as far as the side effects or the symptoms, but I tell you, when you read them off, it's really eerie, and it's really like, it's scary. It's scary to know that all of these side effects could even just one of them is life threatening enough, and to know that you can be damaged that much by just simply taking an Advil and a Tylenol. It's amazing. I've never heard of such a thing. Like I said before, as far as I've been taught, when you are in pain or as far as a headache goes, you just go and take an Advil or a Tylenol or an aspirin, and just wait some time and you'll be fine. Now, there has been times to where the Advil and the Tylenol, they don't work. I've experienced that, plenty of times where I would take them and would get like nothing. It'd just be like me taking a tasteless chemical. So, and to be truthful,
doesn't that it go in correlation to what she just said, that sometimes it's caused by skeletal structure problems, which like you take an aspirin or Advil or Tylenol, something like that. You take something like that for something that is cause like a spinal damage of some sort. That's going to do absolutely nothing. And I guess that could cause. I mean, that could be for a lot of different issues. If somebody is is having an aneurysm in their brain or something, taking a Tylenol is not going to affect that. And of course, that should support the underlying problem. And forgive me, I'm being distracted a lot this evening, so forgive me if this was already mentioned. But I think Tanya had mentioned earlier that a lack of a Tylenol is not what's causing the headache in the first place. And what the Tylenol really ends up doing in most cases is covering up what a symptom of an underlying cause that you want to get rid of. So if you take it, and a good analogy, at least that I've heard of, is just like the light on your car comes on, that your gasoline, you're low on gas, and you have two choices at that point. You can either fill up your gas tank, or you can just unplug the light so you don't see it anymore. If you keep unplugging the light, eventually you're going to run out of gas, and there's going to be a larger problem. Or if the oil light comes on your car, that's even better example, I think, because the oil light you can do with longer than you can for the gas, but eventually your engine's going to crack, and there's going to be a serious problem if you keep ignoring it. So the Tylenol, all that does is allow you to ignore a problem until you eventually will go and see a doctor, and they say, we got to get you into surgery right now. And they're like, I didn't even know what was going on. Yeah, you had indicating signs for weeks, months, years of this going on, and all you've been doing is unplugging the light and saying, body, don't tell me there's a problem. I don't want to hear it right now. Just let me keep eating my junk food, which is likely going to be the cause of probably 90% of the headaches in the country, because the junk food ends up actually causing a lot of back problems, which end up causing neck problems, which ends up causing head problems. If you don't understand that, you probably want to talk to a chiropractor. They can tell you how the skeletal structure in the body works, because there's a lot more going on in your skeletal structure and your muscle structure than what you learn in your average science class, when you have to, oh, here's the femur, here's the tibia. There's a lot more going on than what they actually teach you in the 7th grade biology class that you have to end up learning to take a test to pass the class. So please keep that in mind, and I'll let you guys talk. Sorry.
No problem, Chris.
Because people can be such people can be symptom fixers. They'll take a Tylenol or something else for that matter, and then that will cause some more side effects, and then they'll have to take more medications for that side effect, and then so on and so on, and that stuff just never stops with the medications anyways, and it's an endless road that keeps going on and on and on. And I have some history with that myself.
Also, I wanted to ask you if your PDR lists paracetamol at all, because as far as I know, that's what they call acetaminophen here.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard it called that. Can you say that again?
Paracetamol, Paracetamol.
Actually, I don't have that in my PDR. Mine's Americanized, so I actually don't have it.
But I think it's the same stuff, but I'm not sure.
It very likely is. I really can't say I have a whole lot of knowledge about that, but it very likely would be the same thing. Why don't I give everybody the complete list of side effects here? Let me go back and hit the correct one. Okay,
before you do, are these side effects ever mentioned in the like commercials when this stuff is being advertised, like at all? And if so, is it the entirety of the side effects or just a small list of them?
I haven't watched TV in so long, I really cannot answer that question very well for you. I don't know if anybody else in our group this evening watches TV, and if you could tell us whether or not they name the side effects.
Well, they always have to name the side effects, don't they? They just do the same thing. This may cause paranoia. It may cause your pets exploding. It may cause the wallpaper to, strip off the paint and start choking you and attacking your children. And
they say it.
That's because they're required by law. For those of you who don't know, at least in the United States, they are required by law to list out all the side effects. So that what they do is they get someone in a nice soft tone voice to say them as fast as possible. So when they say, "Oh, hey, if you're pregnant, you could die," oh, like they say it so natural and softly, like you just listen to it and you're like, "Oh, this is serene." And they don't even realize they said, if you will actually slow down and listen to everything they said out, how many times they tell you could die from this if you take it. Like what they'll do is they'll advertise, okay, here's a medication that could make you lose 5 pounds in 2 weeks, but you could die from this and this and this and this and this. Just listen to them sometime. That's exactly what they do. Lorraine, what you want to say? You gotta speak up.
Well, they used to have people talk really fast, but they changed it in the law to where they're required to they slow it down, like we've.
So they have to take like 30 seconds at least to do it.
Yeah, now the commercials. That's why theirs take so long, is because they have to say everything. But as far as
if they would have advertised micro machines and made them slow it down there, and then I would have known what I wanted when I was a child.
But then, I don't know what that is.
It's a boy thing.
Okay.
When I was younger.
All right. As far as I'm aware, whenever I've seen like an Advil or Tylenol commercial, I've never heard of any symptoms or side effects.
Okay. So Lorraine said she's never heard of any of that specifically.
Okay. So here is the list. Arrhythmias, heat stroke, hypertension, toxic psychosis, hepatotoxicology. I can't even say that. Basically, it's a blood toxicity. Nausea, renal tuber necrosis. That means part of your renal system will die. Acute analgesic nephropathy. Wow. Chronic anemia. Oh, goodness. And I can't even say that one. Some of these, I don't even know what they are. They're great big long words. They don't really want you to know what they are. You could get more headaches. You could have a seizure. You can develop a rash. Acute labyrinthitis, blurred vision, hypersensitivity, serum sickness, whatever that is. Miscellaneous is, wow, more big words that I can't even pronounce and can't even tell you what they are. So those are the side effects of Tylenol, Advil, any kind of acetaminophen that you would choose to take. That is what could happen to you. To me, it is not worth it.
And they can also cause rebound headaches, right?
Oh yes, most certainly.
Yeah, that's
most certainly.
And one of the
A lot of
symptoms
times
I
with
thought
the
I
rebound,
was,
with the rebound headaches, a lot of times they come back worse than they started. So yeah, just a terrible cycle.
Oh, by the way, I've noticed that one of the big triggers for headaches for me is sugar.
Oh yes, if you're eating regular cane sugar, you are bound to have headaches. It only makes sense when you think about what sugar does in your body. It will cause headaches, definitely. I wanted to go into some other types of pain relievers. I know we don't have all evening to talk about this, but I wanted to touch on a few other types of pain relief. So one of the common ones is opiates. There is a huge list of opiates here, and believe it or not, well, let me see here. Can anybody tell me a common over-the-counter drug that would be considered an opiate? I think you will be surprised at this, but I'm going to wait and see if anybody else knows the answer.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with a lot of the medical terms, so I don't know what an opiate is. It's when you say it, it sounds like opium. So that's the first thing that pops in my mind. I know what opium is, but I don't know what an opiate is. So can you okay, is it? Okay. I thought you was okay.
Yeah, it's just a type of pain reliever, Dedrick. There are different classifications of pain relievers, and frankly, from acetaminophen, they get worse and worse and worse. So, believe it or not, no, go ahead.
I don't know of any over-the-counter opiates, but I know codeine. You can still get codeine over-the-counter here. You can't there, I know, but you can here.
Mixed with paracetamol.
Yes, codeine is an opiate, but believe it or not, aspirin is an opiate. I would like to know how many people knew that. I did not know that until I started doing some, some light research on the subject. And
for the listeners, yeah, would you go ahead and define opiate, please?
And go over the different levels.
Right.
Oh my, okay. So, according to my PDR, opiates are an analgesic, which means they relieve pain. You have several types of opiates. You have opiates that are considered other combinations. You have opiates that are agonists. You have opiates that are agonists and antagonists. And then you have other analgesics, which actually get worse than opiates. I couldn't believe some of the stuff that I saw. Opiates are frequently used for surgery. Things like morphine are used for pain relief before, during, and after surgery. Let's see here. To tell you that all the different kinds of opiates would be a huge list. I mean, I can't say I even understand all of it because I can't even pretend to. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a doctor. I can tell you that
Tanya, hon. So are opiates addictive or not? Are there like different levels, or like aspirin's like your base level and like morphine is like your super high level, or what are we talking about here? Is like opium an opiate or what? Even after your definition, I'm still really confused.
Okay, well, let me just answer your question then. Yes, opium is an opiate. It I haven't really gotten into street drugs, and there's a reason for that. I think that that really would involve another discussion. But yes, you can go clear up to morphine. Morphine is one of the top and one of the worst, really. Most people are familiar with the type of, how do I say this? The type of side effects that come from using morphine chronically. You have, what do they call it? Morphinism is what they call it. And that is basically where you have used and used and used morphine so many times that your body has built up this huge tolerance to it. Yeah. And it can be extremely dangerous to continue using it. And to stop using it immediately, like if you were to go cold turkey and not use it, that would be extremely dangerous.
So in other words, it is very addictive from what you're saying.
Very highly addictive. Very.
Another side effect of that too is constipation. But I wanted to ask you about aspirin, because I always thought that aspirin was, I want to say salicylic acid. I get the acid that in wintergreen and the acid in aspirin mixed up. But, you know, I had always assumed that aspirin was like from the same acid compound as like willow bark.
Originally, yes. That is the original source of aspirin, but now it is so highly chemicalized. That's the only way I can really describe it. They've made it all synthetic, and it no longer is the original aspirin that you get from willow bark. Willow bark would actually be relatively safe. You would have to be careful with it. You can't overdose with willow bark, but it's much, much safer than the chemical compounds that they sell in the drugstore.
So, I mean, in taking this, I guess, into perspective from a biblical perspective, is that, you know, again, like we talked about before, and we've mentioned that a lot of this stuff is they're like, well, the Bible doesn't talk about this stuff. Well, it does, in essence, because of sorcery, because that's where the root word for pharmakia comes from, is sorcery. Not saying that sorcery, taking drugs, is sorcery, period. There's more to sorcery than just that, but it is part of it. And part of the problem, I guess, is that the Bible doesn't really need to talk about that stuff, because many of the problems that have been created, like, you know, for example, and the statistics that I have heard and read in the past is that about 90% of hospital visits are self-induced problems. So most of the problems that are happening do not require some sort of pharmaceutical answer at all. What they're doing is they're bringing people in, giving them a pharmaceutical drug. And there's a very, very deep rabbit hole we could travel down in this one too. They're giving them a drug which actually they're getting addicted to very often, which is what the opiates are all about most of the time. You're going to get addicted to them the same way you'll get addicted to coffee because of the caffeine highs and all that you get. And so when that stuff happens to you, well, then people keep going back for more. It's a place where we're going to get you well, which is not really well. We're going to make you feel better. We're not going to make you healthy. We're not going to make you well. We're going to make you feel better, get you addicted, and have you keep coming back to get more prescriptions. So it's a never-ending process, and this kind of system did not exist 3,000 years ago. So if you see why the Bible doesn't talk about this, there's a particular reason, and that's because people didn't have the same kind of problems they have now, because people were not eating processed foods and taking all these pharmaceutical chemicals constantly. So they didn't need to talk about it at all. Sure, they had different, you know, things that they do, especially, you know, a lot of the modern, well, I guess I don't want to get too much into that, but there are other, what's the word thing I want to look for? There's people that have had the tenacity to go beyond what the American Medical Association would rather do, and they would study people like the Native Americans and see what they were naturally taking off the land and find out, oh, they were taking natural things that were actually helping them, which is why Native American populations were actually healthier than the, I guess, the savage Europeans, we'll call them that, just to get a little justice in there, since they always want to call the Native American savages. The savage Europeans coming in and hacking them to pieces and shooting them to death. Their societies typically were healthier. And I know time doesn't want to get into the cancer issue, but Native Americans did not have the cancer problems that the Europeans had. So there's a lot of background in healthy eating is the reason. The reason I'm mentioning this is just an example to see how the Jews would not have been doing the same things as a lot of the heathens were doing. When you stop and compare people like our society today that has a lot of sanitation with a pagan society like India that has temples where they worship cows and actually have temples to dung, which is actually a feces temple where cows pooping in the temple is actually holy and sacred to them. So in a society like that, you're going to have all sorts of medical problems. And in order to fix them, it's not really fix the medical problems. They're covering up the problem, the initial problem, by introducing pharmaceuticals, which is nothing more than snake oil. You have this problem, take the snake oil, and that will fix the problem. No. What it is, it's nothing more than a placebo effect, basically. And so what it does is it covers up all the actual symptoms where you can't find what the real source of the problem is, to where people want to take tons and tons of pharmaceuticals to fix all these things, when rather a lot of problems are fixed by basic sanitation. So there's tons of different ways this can go, which is hard to actually pinpoint a talking point. And here's the path we need to travel down this talking point, because it really, once you hit one point, it like spreads out into all the, that's what they tell you, opening a can of worms. The worms just spread out in all different directions. And that's really what we're running into right now. So the reason the Bible doesn't mention that is because they didn't have the same problems. Many of the Jews back then would not have had for example, some of the lower back pain problems that everybody keeps taking these painkillers for, because head problems and back pain problems are the number one reasons why people take pain medication to begin with. And the Jews wouldn't have had so many of those problems because they were eating more natural foods that were more healthy for you, so you don't accumulate all these problems. But again, arrogant America, who is the greatest nation in the world, is full of a bunch of very just prideful people that think, oh, we're so grand and all our modern, our modern technology and modern conveniences and modern medical technology and all that. They think they've got all this science stuff that's going to save them, but really the very basic things that they're doing in their natural habitat, whether it's how they live to what they eat, is really causing most of the problems that we don't need pharmaceuticals to fix.
Thank you, Chris. That said a lot that I think I was trying to say, and it just wasn't coming out. One of the things I did do this week in preparation for this discussion is I looked up in the PDR several herbs and homeopathic remedies that I know about, and I know what they do, and I know how they can help people. And so I decided to look those up in the PDR. Guess what? They're not there. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that at all, that they're not there, because they're not allowed at this time to patent anything natural. There are no patents currently for natural healing substances. So you can't patent an herb. You can't patent a homeopathic remedy. You can only patent things that have been combined or made from a chemical.
Can I caveat?
Oh, go on.
So during the time that I've been back in Georgia coming from Hawaii, one of the things that I was looking for was a source or a way to get Leotil, which is, for those who've read the cancer article, B17, the vitamin B17, which is found mostly in the seeds of fruits. Being back home, I was trying to look.
Said we weren't going to go into the cancer stuff, though. I thought she said that.
I apologize. I was more or less caveat off of what she said. Well, make a long story short, so I don't go too far into the subject. There are certain things that you cannot get in the country because it's illegal. For example, it's illegal to get certain kinds of seeds, And so from what she was saying, so yes, she's right. You don't find those herbs in those handbooks. You don't find those the herbs in the sources because yes, it is illegal to some of that stuff. So I can confirm that I've been looking for some of that stuff but couldn't find it for that very reason.
the neat thing is that B17 actually covers more than just cancer. So it's okay to talk about B17. That is one of the things that actually is available through the PDR, or at least I could find in the PDR. However, the B17 they have is a chemical source, a petrochemical. It's not even real B17. That actually is infuriating because they're saying, oh, we'll give you a B17 shot, that will help you feel better. And they're going and getting these B17 shots that are made from petrochemicals, which are causing more problems in their bodies and causing them to need more pharmaceutical drugs. So does anybody have specific questions? Would they like to talk about a specific drug maybe?
I do. Can marijuana as far as being used as a healing for treatment. There's a lot of people in this country that abuse it, you know, as far as a drug, to either make them feel better or to get them high, or as what it could be used for and how much help it really could be.
Dedrick, I apologize. My screen and audio froze up. Could you tell me what you're asking about? Oh, Dedrick is frozen on my screen. So maybe somebody can help me out?
No, he's been lagging in and out, so we'll just have to try something else.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a question maybe that we can look up and talk about?
I was wondering about mothers when they're having their child. Sometimes they take pain medicine, and I was wondering if that would affect the baby or maybe even the mother.
Most definitely. Most definitely. That's a great question. I know from my own experience that the big ones are sorbitol, I believe is what it's called. And they use a lot of acetaminophen during labor and delivery. I was really surprised at that. But both drugs have issues. We've already talked about acetaminophen. Let me see if I can bring up sorbitol. No, it's not coming up here. I must have the wrong name. Oh, it's Stadol. I apologize. The name of the drug is Stadol. So let me see if I can find that one. Okay, so the proper name is butorphanol. It's the same thing as Stadol. Okay, so if you are already using narcotics, which hopefully if you're having a baby, you're not using narcotics, you cannot use Stadol. It is associated with the withdrawal symptoms in patients taking opiates. Difficulties exist in assessing opiate tolerance. Carbon dioxide retention is a side effect of Stadol. And if you know anything about birth and delivery, the last thing you need is to retain carbon dioxide. It is not a good idea. It says here that central nervous system active agents or suffering from central nervous system diseases or respiratory impairment are more prone to respiratory depression after Stadol. Rare occasions of severe hypertension. Let's see here. It can aggravate renal impairment, hepatic impairment, cardiac disease, acute MI, pulmonary impairment. It can lead to substance abuse. It can actually cause head injury. It depresses the central nervous system. And you should not drink alcohol with it. So that kind of gives you an idea. Stadol is not a good idea. That was one that was given to me personally at the end of my labor, supposedly to relax my muscles. I wish I had never done it. So the thing is, these drugs, I don't care if it is just Tylenol. I don't care if it's Stadol. I don't care if it's morphine. I don't care if you choose to smoke a joint of some kind. There are consequences, and you have to figure out what those consequences are. And when a lot of people decide, oh, you know what, I want this headache gone now, so I'm going to take XYZ, and, you know, that way I'll feel better. But actually, they find they don't feel better later on.
Yeah, you know, I've had chronic migraines, and I was on several medications, and ever since I've got off of all those medications, they've actually quieted down a tremendous amount more than they have.
A lot of people I have talked to with migraine headaches take that Imitrex. I'm going to see if I can find Imitrex for you, just so that we know.
Yep, I've been on that though.
Yeah, I take that a lot too.
It's not coming up by name brand.
Try sumatriptan. That's the chemical name.
Apparently, it's a different chemical name than the United States because it's not coming up at all. Do we know what pharmaceutical company puts it out?
How are you spelling it? Tanya? How are you spelling it?
Oh, I don't know. I've already erased it. How do you spell it?
It's I believe it's Imitrex.
Oh, there it is. Maybe I did spell it wrong. Okay. All right, Imitrex. Wow. All right, should only be used if a clear diagnosis of migraine has been established. Renal impairment, blood impairment, diabetes, hypertension, cardiac risk factors, seizure disorders. And there is a huge amount of other drugs that it interacts with that can cause you to die. Definitely not something I would want to take I have a client currently who is taking that, and I would love more than anything to help find the right stuff to get her off of it, because she's already on several other drugs for different issues, and I'm just like, wow, you need to get off of this
Well,
as
then
soon as you
probably feels like the solution to that would be to get her away from her doctor. I mean, that's how she gets off of it, right? I mean, because the one side effect that at least I've heard of for that drug is that it fattens doctors' wallets. Is that a side effect?
Yeah, most drugs are that way, Chris. They do fatten doctors' wallets. And if it's not the doctor directly, then it's the pharmacy's wallet.
You know, it's not. I know this is maybe not.
That is how I got off of the medications. Is by stop going to the doctor. It's how I've gotten off of them.
I mean, I know this was. It may not be necessarily relevant to the subject that you're doing, but you know, just I remember a girl I dated in college. Her dad was a pediatrician, and he was a pediatric doctor. Her mom was a pediatric nurse, and he owned his own practice out in Oklahoma. And the thing is, one time is that you know, she went in to go get something because here's the thing, all these prescription junk, if you know the doctor, doesn't matter. A lot of people don't realize they just go behind the scenes and do what they want half the time when it comes down to following the law with pharmaceuticals and whatever. That's only, you know, having to purchase from strangers. With his daughter, basically, she's like, oh, you know, I got you know, I need this and this. That's what she was telling me. He's like, oh, okay, here's the key, go get it. She would go around back to their storage closet, open up, and they got more pharmaceutical drugs than I've seen in a drugstore back in the storage container. And she just walks in and, you know, grabs a handful of stuff, and then we went out. That's how they do this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of them that don't even understand. And of course, here's the thing about health and the connection, you know, I got to see very early on, because this was, you know, the first girl I had ever dated ever. And let me show you the connection here. Her mom was a diabetic. She was enormous. She was a diabetic. And she would go to a restaurant and she would eat more than me and the girl I was dating combined, and continue to do this. She's a pediatric nurse. She's supposed to be recommending things for children, for babies. And she acts like this. Of course, after I broke up with the girl and went on, she called me one day and she said, my mom's in the hospital, even though I told her and her siblings, you better go talk to her, or one day you're going to wake up and she's going to be in the hospital. I told them that 2 years prior. And this is exactly what happened. So if you can see how the pharmaceutical doctors and the nurses and all that, they are so brainwashed into pharmaceuticals, they can't even see the spoon right in front of them and what they're putting in their mouths. I mean, what's really sad about this, and not in this particular case, but in a general sense, the average doctor's wife knows more about health and nutrition than the doctor himself, which is extremely scary.
Oh, that is so true. And the thing is it's a big catch-22 of fear-mongering. It starts in the medical colleges, and they teach these doctors, there have been textbooks that I have talked to people that said, oh yes, this is in the medical textbook. And it literally tells doctors that if a patient refuses to take a medication, that you should lie to the patient and convince them that they need to take it. I have another friend with a child with juvenile diabetes, and she is convinced under no circumstances can they stop doing what the doctor orders because he will die. And I'm like, no, he won't. He will not die. You just need to get on the right diet and stick with it. He will not die. But of course, you know, they've got him on insulin. They've got him on Adderall, which is basically meth. And I'm sorry. Is there a question?
No, Jeannie needs to mute her mic.
Because I was gonna, I'll mute it right now. But there's some other topics that I want to get into right after this.
Okay, well, that's basically all I'm saying is that, if the patients themselves are not convinced that they need a drug, the doctor is taught to instill the fear in them that they need the drug. And then the patient believes the doctor, they get the drug, and they tell their family members, oh no, I can't stop this drug, I will die. I mean, I've been there myself. I completely understand how these doctors do this, but I no longer am on any pharmaceutical drugs. I completely do everything natural, and I would not take a drug if my life depended on it. Now, if I was in an emergency room, my life was at stake, yeah, I would do that. But then I would go home later for chronic treatment, and I would do things naturally. So go ahead, Jeannie, what is your question?
No, real quick before she does it, I was just going to say, if we got all these doctors' jobs like washing windows or changing tires, could we call that reduce and reuse?
I've got something to say about that. So like you were saying about doctors instilling the fear about about making sure you get these drugs. I can give you a little bit of firsthand experience that this does happen. Whenever you go to the emergency, not the emergency room, but whenever you go to see a doctor and you are getting advice from them, it's either the attitude of, listen to me, I know what I'm talking about, and there's no other choice but to do this in the way that I said it. That being said, that's why it's good for not only Christians but people in general to get out and do research about a certain sickness. Look, the internet is at your fingertips, and it's not difficult to look up and search the things that you need to know about a certain drug or about a certain sickness or about a certain disease. Uh, there's no need for you to put complete faith in any one person or two person or three person. You can very well get up and look and search things for yourselves. And that's one of the biggest things that I think that hurts, America as a nation when it comes to health, is that I wouldn't say we, but people in America have grown lazy enough to where that, the only thing that they have to do or think they need to do is to go see the doctor next door, you know, rather than looking for, the, the, uh, the looking for a cure or looking for something to help them, on their own. And trust me, going to the doctor is not cheap. They get, you go out of pocket a lot, just to see them for 30 minutes. Not only see them for 30 minutes, but to wait an extra hour and 30 minutes behind somebody else, uh, just so you could get seen. And like I said, that could all be alleviated if you just, take the time and look up the symptoms yourself and see what you could do to fix them. It's cheaper, it's smarter, and from what I'm hearing now, it's safer. So yeah, but that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, the problem with that I have here is that we have socialized medicine. So we pay nothing for doctor's visits. We only pay up to $370 a year for prescriptions, and then the rest of the year we don't have to pay for it. And we only pay like $6.30 for each prescription up until we reach that point. So here, going natural would be a lot more expensive than the pharmaceutical route or the conventional medicine.
Even
the other thing,
but
the other thing I wanted to get into was like things like valium and antibiotics.
Oh, don't get me started on antibiotics, but I will real quick for you. Anti means against, biotic means life. So you put the word together and you have a drug that is literally against life. One of the side effects of every antibiotic is death. If it's not death of your full body, then it's the death of cells. Depending on where your weak spot is, they go directly to the weak spot in your body and they kill. And they kill indiscriminately. I do not recommend antibiotics at all. If anybody on this call ever has a need, they think, for an antibiotic, send me a private message, send me a private email, something. Let me send you in the right direction research-wise. Don't ever use antibiotics. Valium. I remember looking at that one this week, and let me see here. The Latin name is diazepam. Every home, by the way, should own a physician's desk reference. I might have an extra one if somebody here in the States needs one. I would have to look. But anyway, every home should have a physician's desk reference. If you ever see any kind of doctor for any reason, you need to know what they are telling you to take. Now, having said that, Valium, renal impairment, blood impairment, central nervous system depressant, impaired pulmonary function, that means you can't breathe, psychosis, suicidal intentions. It can lead to alcohol abuse and it can lead to other substance abuse. Okay, so it also says here that you should not be using Valium if you have hypersensitivity to ingredients that they use in the product, which most of the time they won't even tell you how they make it. So how would you know that you are sensitive to part of the product? If you have glaucoma, you cannot use it. If you are comatose, you cannot use it. If you have breathing problems, you cannot use it. You cannot use it for sleep apnea. You cannot use it for any kind of liver dysfunction. You cannot use it if you have a pre-existing central nervous system problem. You cannot use it if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, or if you are under 6 months old. Frankly, that is not a drug I would want to take. I have had Valium. I cannot take it. So, are there any other questions about it?
Yes. Can you explain again what exactly does Valium do? Like I said, I'm when it comes to drugs, pharmaceuticals, I'm closer on the ignorant side than anybody else. I have no idea what like even the terms, even saying and hearing them give me a headache. So, so can you explain to me what is Valium? What does it do?
Sure. Valium is mainly for anxiety. It is supposed to help calm the body down and help you feel just kind of, even keeled, like everything's okay. A lot of times people like to take it to help them sleep. Doctors will prescribe it if they're going to do a colonoscopy. They'll give people Valium beforehand.
I'm pretty much immune to all of those side effects because they've tried to sedate me for gastroscopies before and nothing works. So I have to have a general anesthetic. Sedatives do not sedate me. The only thing that Valium is good for, as far as I'm concerned, if I get severe muscle cramps, like I do sometimes, where I'll have my feet will just lock up on me and I can hardly move, or my legs. I tend to get muscle cramps, and I haven't figured out the main cause of them yet. But Valium does take care of those.
Well, and that's what they prescribe it for as well. That's one of the things in the physician's desk reference that it says it's for. However, what's going to happen is a rebound effect. So you're going to have muscle cramps. You're going to take Valium for the muscle cramps. The muscle cramp will go away, but then it will come back, and it will be worse than the time before. So you take more Valium. Then you feel better, and then you get the muscle cramps, and they come back worse than they were before. And eventually, you're going to need more and more Valium, which, as we just read in the side effects, will eventually lead to death. It's just not a good idea.
So, in other words, it's something else that you could, just as easily get addicted to. That's what I'm gaining from it.
Well, it is that, because there's a back when I was doing care aids for, like, I was working in, it was helping to watch over nursing home patients or in their houses and all that. There was a guy that we were, Lorraine, can you turn that off, please? Thank you. There was a guy that I was watching in a nursing home, and I liked the guy, I really did. And when I first got in there, he wasn't really on anything. He was just getting to the point. He was having the dementia and all that was coming in. The Alzheimer's dementia was starting to set into his mind. And so sometimes he would kind of forget what was going on or something like that. And to have someone there with him during the day, that's what I was there for. Well, as I was watching during the day, I started to notice when they were putting him on, they would start him on something. The psychiatric doctor would come in, and I was put in a really awkward position because I was not aware that I was not supposed to be sitting in on the psychiatric doctor being there, because I mean, first of all, I knew exactly what he was there for. The second he was there to analyze the person to prescribe a drug. He wasn't going to walk out of there without giving that guy a prescription. I already knew that. But sitting there, he was under the impression I was a family member, and I wasn't. But I was asked by the guy's wife to sit in on it. And so I just did what I was told to do, because after all, she's kind of my boss. Not indirectly, she's my boss, but technically I didn't realize the company I worked for almost fired me over this issue. And because I relayed to her what happened, and then she went off on them, and then there was this whole legal thing that came into it, and I almost lost my job over it. But when I was in there, I saw him prescribe that thing. Then what happened is he started having the side effects. Now, I can't remember all the names of the different things that were on there, but I'm just telling you, I watched the process happen. Over the course of a week, he started to develop another problem that seemed to happen. The psychiatrist then recommended another drug. That drug then fixed the initial problem. Like I said, they're fixing the initial problem, but then a new problem started. Like, for example, one of the things I remember, it was fixing some of his stress out moments, but then he was having his bowel movements were it was so awkward. He would get constipated and things like that. So they recommended another drug to help him with the constipation, which caused even another problem. And folks, I'm not making this up. This is based on my testimony of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm telling you, this is the truth. Within 3 weeks, he was dead. He died. And I watched with him. I mean, he was so bad. He was just in the bed. He wouldn't wake up at that point. And they were keeping him alive. I tried to pray for him, but he was gone the next day. I mean, they got him on so many drugs, his body couldn't even handle it anymore. And this is the reality. And these people think, oh, well, we tried to help him. Yeah, you helped him dig his grave. And they glory, and that's why the Bible says they glory in their shame. They ought to be ashamed that they're murdering these people. And yet, no, we're the wise, intelligent doctors who know what's best for you. Listen, I'm not saying that every doctor is bad or every doctor is evil. There's some good doctors out there that try to prescribe what's right, but typically they don't work for the AMA or are not associated with them at all. That's about the only way you can escape that, is they have to be away from mainstream medicine in order to actually give you information that's going to help you and your family. So just keep that in mind.
Very true, Chris. I'm beginning to feel like that nursing homes are really there as euthanasia centers. They want to drug up all of these people so that their life ends and they can empty a bed and get somebody else in there. And that's a shame. It's a real shame because our elderly people are great treasures. And to drug them up is just nothing short of evil.
It seems to reiterate something that I've been seeing throughout the years myself. Even though I don't know a whole lot about the pharmaceuticals or the drugs or whatever, what I do see is that a lot of older people, and I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the same thing too, will be on several different kinds of medication at once. If you've looked in somebody's medicine cabinet, maybe you got nosy. I know I have. I'll admit to it. I've gotten nosy and looked in, family members or a friend's medicine cabinet, of somebody who was older, and they would have medicines lined up in stacks. This is for this is for this is for this. And basically, from what Chris was saying earlier, that it seems that's where that stems from, is that one drug leads to another. And that
I noticed you had toothpaste in your cabinet. I see you suffer from bad breath.
I mean, I do maybe, but anyway, but yeah, that's it. I've noticed that. I've noticed that with a lot of family. I've noticed that with a lot of friends. I've noticed that with a lot of older people. But and it really scares me personally, because I don't know what to tell somebody who has who is on so many different types of drugs, because I don't know particularly what they do. But I have noticed that they do cause other side effects, just like Chris was talking about. And just to reiterate something else that he was saying is that they glory in their shame. It's hard to somebody who's blind to the things that they are doing to somebody else. It's hard to get them to see and to realize that they're hurting more people than they are helping. And that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed greatly too when it comes to this subject.
I want to mention,
go ahead, Chris.
Verse is Philippians 3:19, whose end is destruction, whose God is in their belly. That's what it's talking about. It says because it just talked about where he was saying that the apostles themselves, they were an example to the rest of the flock. And then in verse 18, it says, for many walk, of whom I have told you, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction, whose God is in their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. So the God in their belly is that they're doing things for the money. They want to have more, so that way they can fill their growling stomachs with things. That's why they do these certain things, is for the money. And then what they are glorifying themselves in, look at my prestigious PhD. Oh, he's a medical doctor. Those kind of things. That's what they're glorying themselves in. But it's what they should be ashamed of, because they're minding so much of the earthly things that they're trying to get, rather than actually helping people. They hide behind helping people. And please, for those of you listening out there, don't think you're going to be able to go to a doctor, especially in public, and say that to them. It's not a good idea. Make sure that you pick your battles in the proper time and the proper place. And the best place, if you really want to talk to people about this, is do a grassroots thing. It's just how Jesus Christ says you put the new wine into the new wine bottles, not the old ones, because the old ones, they're going to leak right through. The same thing is, the same principle can be applied with a lot of doctors, is that they have such a prestige, and they have spent, some of them, hundreds of thousands of dollars into their educations. Some of them, even that you'll see, are still paying them back decades later, trying to pay off all that debt, because they're buying themselves, Mercedes are expensive. Somebody's got to foot the bill for that, and usually it's the pharmaceutical companies that help them foot the bill for the Mercedes. So you have to, once they're buying all these earthly things that they have their minds on, and they're not paying their debts, which biblically they ought to be doing first thing, you have to understand that when they have all that vested interest in that, and they walk around, and when they said they're a medical doctor, everybody's like, oh, Tin Hut, look, there's a medical doctor over here. Oh, we need to respect this person. They're glorifying that. They love the preeminence. That's what the Bible talks about. They love the preeminence. They love that respecting persons. God's not a respecting persons. They will be held accountable for every single life they have taken, every single life they have threatened. The Bible calls it, when the Bible says they have blood on their hands, it's not necessarily saying that they went around and stabbed these people. Oh, I got blood on my hands, so now I'm guilty of these things. You can get blood on your hands indirectly. You can have blood on your hands by driving the getaway car. I mean, even in the law, even our basic United States law, it's called being an accomplice, which means you get held to the same standard as the guy that did the crime if you just help somebody do it. So if you think, I mean, if our own government holds people to those standards, which are good to do, why do you think that God's not going to hold people to these standards? They're going to be held accountable for everything they've said, thought, or done. So even if they did, well, I was ignorant of it. You were willfully ignorant of it. And so the thing is, the best thing to do is go, I mean, if you want to get a message across to doctors, the best way to do it is speak the language that they understand, and that's money. The way to do that is to shift your buying, what you purchase, away from them. Don't buy their stuff anymore. Go to natural things, okay? Go to natural foods, and you'd be surprised how much it'll help your health, and you want others to do the same. It's a grassroots thing. So make sure that people are going away from pharmaceuticals and into natural stuff, and then when nobody is buying the pharmaceuticals anymore, guess what happens? The doctors are out of a job, and the pharmaceutical industry is out of work. They have nothing more to sell, so if you'll simply do that, it's a whole lot easier than trying to convert, spend your life trying to convert doctors that are never going to listen to you. Ryan, you want to say something?
Support your local farmers market.
Support your local farmers market. That's a very good idea. That wasn't just cute, it was also very true. Because the fresh fruits and vegetables that are not GMOs and don't have the pesticides in them, they're a whole lot healthier for you. So sorry. Organic, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, we have come to the end of our time for the evening. So if there's no more questions, I will say good night for the evening. And please remember that you have the power to vote with your dollars. So don't buy pharmaceutical drugs. Find somebody who knows how to heal you naturally and go with that.
All right, so are you saying we're done today? That's it?
I do have one more question before we end, just as an end note. So I know a lot of people, this is probably new information to them or a new step process for them. Is there a way that you could go step by step? Because I remember earlier you were talking about quitting stuff cold turkey. Would that be the best method to do for somebody who is just now hearing this for the first time, just to quit something cold turkey? I know anybody with an addiction, that's something that almost never happens. So is like, what would be your advice for, somebody who is, I guess, looking to better their health without the pharmaceutical drugs, who is just starting out?
Most drugs cannot be stopped immediately. That's what I mean by cold turkey. Any drug that is not OTC, so like an OTC is over the counter, acetaminophen is over the counter, different over the counter drugs, those can be stopped cold turkey. Do not flush them down the toilet if you have leftover. Put them someplace where they can be incinerated. Heat will kill the chemicals, and then they are safe. They are rendered safe to go into the ground or whatever. But they have to be incinerated. They cannot be flushed down the toilet, which people are ruining our drinking water that way. Anyway, very quickly, the best thing to do is if you are taking 6 pills of something a day, go to 5.5 for 2 weeks. Then go to 5 for 2 weeks. Do you see what I'm saying? You go down slowly and wean off slowly. As you do that,
like they say, they don't like throw you into like 10 pills a day automatically. They work you up, so you have to work down the same way, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right. If this is the first time you've ever heard this information, I can guarantee you that if you ask your doctor about getting off your drugs, they're going to tell you you can't. They're going to use fear to control you into staying on the drug.
Oh, that's not the only thing they do. Sometimes they'll say, well, you can't get off this one, but you need to take these 2 other drugs to help you do it.
Yes, they do that as well. They'll say, well, if you don't want to take that one, we'll give you this other one over here. And it's just as bad. It's just as bad. And so like for instance, diabetics. I have actually talked to someone that got off of their insulin and they're no longer diabetic. Most diabetics will tell you, no, you can't stop taking insulin. Yes, you can. You have to do it slowly. You can't immediately stop because your body will react. I mean, there are consequences to each drug you choose, whether it's a natural supplement or a pharmaceutical drug. There's going to be a consequence, and it's a matter of good consequences or bad consequences. Anyway, my point is, most drugs you need to wean off slowly. Do it, figure out how many you're taking a day and start cutting one dose in half. And anything over the counter, usually you can just quit cold turkey. Just stop taking it. Have it incinerated. Do not use any more of it. Are there any other questions? Okay, so I think that's it for this evening. I appreciate everybody who came and participated in this discussion, and thank you all, and we'll see you hopefully next week.
Yeah, and if you guys want to get more of these, you can subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't done it already, and get more of those. And I'm sorry I didn't post this as soon as because I didn't think about it. I'm going to try to post them a day ahead of time from now on to make sure people know it's coming. But sorry about that. I'll try to do that better. But anyway, well, I guess, sorry, Tanya. I just wanted to say that.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and end it then.